Welcome to the Working Tools Podcast, where today we will be discussing Chapter 2 of Whither Are We Traveling by Dwight Smith.
Ladies and gentlemen, brethren all, welcome to the Working Tools Podcast, a casual conversation around Freemasonry. First, it's important to note that our thoughts and opinions are our own and do not reflect those of our Grand Lodge or respective craft or concordant bodies. Please connect with us and ask questions via our website at theworkingtoolspodcast.com.
Today on the Working Tools Podcast, we have our usual group of hosts. I'm Very Worshipful Brother Matt Appel, and I'm a member of Mill Creek Lodge 243 here in Motley Terrace, Washington. We also have Worshipful Brother Jarrod Dunham of Penticton 147 in Penticton, British Columbia. Very Worshipful Brother David Colbeth of King Solomon number 60 in Auburn, Washington. And Worshipful Brother Stephen Chung of Prince Charles 153 in lovely Kelowna, British Columbia. So in continuing our discussion of the Whither Are We Traveling mega article, we're going to discuss sort of the first question that he addresses about leadership. Just to read the question off, although I'm sure you've all listened to Jarrod's wonderful reading of the entire article, I will just start us off with the question itself, which is, can we expect Freemasonry to retain its past glory and prestige unless the level of leadership is raised above its present position? And again, its present position being in 1962. But as we discussed in the last couple episodes, I don't know that much has changed since 1962. So
It certainly hasn't got any better.
There you go. So this chapter rather starts with an story about a teacher from a neighboring town who joined a lodge and then disappeared after receiving their first degree. Did you guys have deep thoughts about this story?
I'm gonna quote a certain Brother Appel. I want more data. I felt this story, there's some information missing from this story.
Why don't you know, if nothing else, how did they find out that was why he left? Did someone ask?
Yeah. They did an exit interview,
which I wish we could do, but
yeah.
Veiled in allegory, brothers, veiled in allegory.
And illustrated with data?
Symbols.
Oh, sure.
Symbolic
Symbols
data.
like, numbers and points on a graph.
Hey, we had a show about that, I think.
No, I shouldn't say I have a problem, but I'm a little upset with Brother Smith in this one, in that he talks about leadership, but is constantly haranguing the master, as though the master is the only one in a leadership position in the lodge. The leadership of a lodge is made up of more than just one man. It's the master, it's the principal officers, it's the past masters. And I almost feel like he has a specific master in mind when he's writing this article.
Yes.
I could see that. I would agree that to some extent, although I think he's focusing on the master because the master is the symbolic head of the lodge, though. And so, yes, I would agree that leadership in general in a lodge extends much farther beyond the master's chair. But yeah, the master, and when we're thinking about men that could or should be a master of a lodge, I think there's traits that he talks about that we often, and he points to it, we often kind of ignore that. Oh, he's been senior deacon, he's been junior warden, he's been senior warden, he should be master, or he's been a Mason for 20 years, he should be master, or yeah, he could do the work, but he may not be able to lead very well, or yeah, as you talk about later, he's a great leader, but he can't memorize anything. My comment was, why can't we do both? But whatever.
Well, that brings up an interesting point. I know a lodge that has a past master that he literally read everything. He was a great organizer. He organized the lodge, and they had a very successful term. They did all the degrees. They had social events. They had fundraisers. They did some charity work. They had a very fulfilling year, but he read everything. But when they said to him, "Hey, we'd like you to go through the chairs and whatnot," he said, "I'm not strong at memory work, and therefore I will probably end up reading everything." And sure enough, when he showed up at his installation, he had one of those 3-inch binders, and he had everything in it, everything tabbed. He was organized, but he read everything. So I don't know. That's in some lodges not acceptable. It did have some people scratching their heads, but I don't know. I guess whatever works in your lodge, right?
Well, it's interesting actually because I have a couple of points that I made when I was reading through this, and because in the second one he says there's far more to being a master of a lodge than the mere recitation of a ritual, and because he talks about providing inspired leadership, and I'm like, well, but isn't being able to do ritual providing inspired leadership? And he keeps and he start this when he talks about we start in line the man who is on hand whenever the door is open, regardless of whether he has even the most elementary qualities of leadership. And I'm like, but that's the idea of the line, is that as you progress through the chairs, you are learning the leader, or you should be learning the leadership qualities that are required for the next chair and the next chair, so that when you are sitting in the East, you have been exposed to the leadership qualities that we expect, and you've been given hopefully mentorship on how to lead your lodge and stuff, so that once again, this is where I'm like, I feel that Smith has a specific master in mind, because if a master fails to be a good, like if a brother fails in their year as master, is it wholly their fault? And should they actually have to hold the whole blame if they've gone through the line and at some point and have never seen good leadership, they've never been provided with it, they've never been given any kind of guidance on what the lodge actually expects? Do we put men in the East and go, okay, it's your year, what are you going to do?
That's where I think too, the idea of numbers, what's the perfect number for a lodge, the number of men. And so is having 20 guys enough depth to have leadership and skills with ritual and all these other things we expect of them? Or do we need to have 100 guys so we can draw from a vast group of men that have the ability to have both? And so are we lessening our expectations by saying, oh, he's a good leader, even though he's not a good ritualist, and we expect ritual? I had read it again that he says, we expect our entered apprentices and our fellow craft and our new candidates to have an excellent level of ritual work, but that's okay for the master. The master doesn't have to do ritual work. Well, how did he get to be a Mason if he didn't have to do excellent ritual work? And maybe the lodge doesn't have that high of standard. Maybe there are some lodges that have a little lesser standard for ritual. And so that could be a double-edged sword. So now are we lessening the West Gate? There's lots to unpack here.
Well, and there's this, oh, sorry, Matt. No, go ahead. No.
But we're going to have our editor edit that one out. I did feel like I was just going to support what David just said, that I did kind of feel like he was having both sides of that coin there, that he was saying, there's no minimum requirements for proficiency, nothing regarding history, symbolism, philosophy, ethics, law, tradition. In which case, well, if you don't know any of that stuff, I don't know that you're going to make a great leader. And then, but yet I have said on this podcast, and I'm sure I will end up saying it again in my life, I would rather have a man in the East who is a leader of men than a perfect ritualist. Don't get me wrong, I would rather have both. That would be my ideal. But I personally would rather have someone who can inspire people to get stuff done than spout off exactly the right questions and answers.
And I would totally agree with that, except that If he makes no effort, if he makes no effort to, again, how did he become a master mason? How did he get to where he is if he didn't have to do some kind of ritual? And so if we just accept like, oh no, you don't have to do anything, we'll just do opening and closing, and then we'll have somebody else do all the degree work or other things, whatever. But if he's got a stroke or something, or if there's been some condition that's happened that he can't, then is he really able to lead as well? I mean, there might be more questions to unpack there, but if he's truly an excellent leader, there must be a reason why he can't or won't. Again, I think the lodge expectation, the lodge just isn't expecting him to allow that to happen. And so then how can, I think Steve was the one that mentioned it years ago, or somebody did, that there was a candidate, I think it was Steve, there was a candidate that was learning the ritual, and he went to get his book, or no, he was asking for prompts. That's what it was. And he's like, well, I don't need to learn it. I'll just ask for prompts. Yeah. because when he went to lodge, everybody was asking for prompts all the time.
Yeah. Don't I just say word and somebody gives me the next three lines? Yeah.
And so if we don't expect that of our master as the symbolic head of the lodge, then how can the new Masons coming in say, well, gosh, I don't have to memorize that. I can be master. And I don't know. Again, I certainly wouldn't want someone up there stumbling and embarrassing themselves as well as the lodge. I'd rather have somebody that's better at that. So maybe he's a honorary past master, but he's still a leader of the lodge, and he could function as a excellent leader of the lodge, but just not a master. I think the master holds a certain function in the lodge, and they're symbolic leader, but they're also should be, as he talks about, excellent ritualists. And so maybe we need to separate the potential of a true lodge leader versus a master. And I would love to have them both together, but maybe our master is the ritualistic leader. No.
Well, you can't do that. The master is the head of the lodge. I see I know where you're going, and I agree with you that it would be nice, but and I would posit that if your master is not able to do ritual, he is not leading the lodge, because he's falling down.
Yeah. Or at least trying worthily.
He's had years to learn it.
I would agree. I would agree.
I'm going to be the.
I would agree. No, I think you and I would agree on that part.
Yeah, stretch yourself. The whole point of Freemasonry is stretching yourself.
And I think that's why you should have a level of proficiency in lodge by the senior deacon level, so that we're not going to elect this guy to the lodge line if he doesn't have these set of skills that we expect from a master.
Well, it's so again, it comes down to, like you say, expectations in the lodge of the master, of all the membership, really, because one of my roles is the lodge officer's coach, right? And as a past master, I have the experience, and I can share that experience with new Masons coming through the line. Let them know the expectations of the duties that are going to be coming forth. And in our lodge, we try to encourage the guys going through the line. As soon as they hit senior deacon or junior deacon, we get them working on the ritual for the next role a year in advance, so that when they get to doing that role, they're fairly proficient at it already. And if they've spent the time and participated in lodge and were there for the openings and closings, they should know the role pretty good. So that's where we try to encourage them anyways, is to learn your upcoming work a year in advance, because it's always easier to refresh something than learning something for the first time, right?
Yeah, for sure. Get the ritual out of the way. That's what I talk about. Our proficiency in lodge management is just the ability to get the ritual out of the way, so you don't have to worry about that, and you can actually focus on leading the lodge.
Right. Exactly. And we've talked about it before in other episodes. I got held back, and I could have jumped chairs because there was a big vacancy, but I didn't understand, why, they would be held back until I was worshipful master and realized that, yeah, I needed to know the responsibilities of each role, and I had to learn it. So I knew not only what to expect, but that because I had also done it, I should expect that of those coming up the line. And but I can expect it from a position of having done it myself along the way, learned every step so that I could be proficient as a worshipful master.
So I actually have a question for you guys, and not about ritual, because I know how we talk and we think, because this is about leadership. And he has in his few paragraphs he talks about the qualities of the men. Like think back to the names of the men who served our lodges as masters 100 or even 50 years ago, and then consider, the positions of importance they had in their community. And, are we in the same league with that leadership? And I wrote a note here that says that I actually have a problem with that line of thinking, is that not all good leaders are going to run for civic office or be the head of large organizations. Isn't the point of Freemasonry is we're not supposed to be going out looking for the great leaders and bringing them in? Aren't we supposed to be making the great leaders and sending them out? Because he harps about our leadership, and I'm like, but because there are only so many leaders, people in prominent positions in our city, in our communities, and if our lodges are only supposed to have them, would any of us be in lodge? I mean, I'm not running for civic office. I work for myself. I don't have a big organization to manage.
I guess I would, because it's what I say every time. I would argue that those two go hand in hand. That if as Masonry develops a man and makes him into a better man / leader, people around the community, one would like to think, would say, hey, that Jarrod, that's a sharp guy. I want to be like him, or whatever. And then we would accrete more men who were interested in that and were interested in developing themselves. And just like the catchphrase is making good men better, I think we start with some level of social proficiency that is expanded upon. Does that make sense? I
would
feel
agree
like
with
I
that.
went off right.
No, I would agree with that, and I think the idea of guarding the West Gate. So what if what if someone slips through, so to speak, that maybe shouldn't have, and now wants to be master?
But is this fair to say that this is a guarding the West Gate issue, when really, I mean, not everybody is meant to go up through the line and be a worshipful master and leader of a lodge. Some guys are meant to just participate and contribute where they have a strength, right?
So what if they want to, or somebody wants them to be master?
Well, then that's when you have that whole conversation about, what are their skills? What are their desires? Are they willing to do the work that's going to be involved in going through the line?
No one should just sit on the sidelines. Everyone should want to go through the chairs, and we should do our best to help them do it.
I don't know. There's guys in my lodge that have no desire to be worshipful master, and there's some guys that, like we got one guy who, he's had a stroke and he can't, commit things to memory anymore. He's always been a very active member of the lodge, and now he's the chaplain because he can read his part, right? And read from the Bible. So he doesn't need to memorize anything. Does he contribute to the lodge? More than many. He runs the mentorship program. He coaches all the guys going through. He coaches all the guys coming in with their memory test. He He's very active in the social functions of the lodge, right? But he'll never go through his master.
But he's one of the lodge leaders. By what you just said, he's a leader in your lodge.
Right.
He's not just sitting on the sidelines.
That's right. But he's not going through the chair.
But he has a reason for that.
Yes.
You cannot train better.
Correct.
I guess my question more was that guy, maybe he realizes he doesn't want to go through. My question was more for somebody that either thinks they want to go through or somebody wants them to go through, and they're a reluctant participant in that desire for somebody else for them to go through the chair. But basically, somebody's in potential candidate to go into the chairs when they really probably shouldn't be going into the chairs. Then what happens? And because, he's next, or he can do the ritual, or he's a great leader. Again, picking one of the two and not both.
Can you not develop the weak part as they're going through? Are you saying that they're completely, that they're a great leader, but there's never a chance that they could learn their ritual? Or that they can learn their ritual and never learn the qualities of leadership?
Depend on the person. There are some cases where the function of a man, can he do all of the signs and symbols and memorize the words and all that? Yes. But could he lead an organization? No. And so should he be eligible to be master? Maybe. If for example, we had a balloting issue and a change in our bylaws recently, it was extensive. Could he have run that? Probably not. Now, what we could do, I suppose, is have somebody else run it for him. But then and maybe as a good master, he'd sign somebody else to do it for him, maybe. So maybe I'm answering my own question.
Once again, I'm coming back. It just circles right back around to when masters fail. Part of the reason is their lodge fails them.
Sure.
Because in the instance you're just talking about there, like even with the balloting and the bylaws and stuff, it depends on whether or not your lodge is willing to sit back and let him fail, or whether your lodge is willing to recognize his weaknesses and prop him up and help him.
Yeah, I guess in my mind that there's some guys that if they had some nurturing, they could be the leader.
Right.
Or there's some guys that just don't have the ability to be nurtured.
And I get from reading Smith, what the impression I get is his complaint is lodges that allow someone to go into the East and then allow that person to just flub their year completely without.
Yeah.
So once again, this is my thing, is that you can't put it all on one person if everyone else in the lodge isn't willing to step in even a little bit and help them along.
So what about the master that thinks he's a leader, but he's absolutely not?
Once again, just whispering wise counsel in his ear.
Yeah.
That's what the immediate, I don't know about you guys, but that's why the immediate past master sits to his left.
I
think it's something else we should adopt.
The duties of a past master are to sit there and be prepared to give counsel when needed, and when needed, right? So I guess that depends on what determines what is needed.
If you're in our district, you've got your immediate past master to your left and your district deputy grand master to your right. You're pretty much covered if there's something you don't know.
Yes.
And you've got the secretary running the lodge, so you're good.
Exactly.
Don't let the secretary hear that.
It's observe, Matt. Observe. Not obey.
I observe as well as I let it go by.
So I have another question.
I think we could save that maybe. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll bring it up in the next episode.
Oh. All right. Well, with that ominous foreshadowing, thank you all for listening to the Working Tools podcast. We look forward, as always, to to reading your comments, on hearing from you about our exciting episodes. And we, on behalf of David and Jarrod and Stephen and myself, thank you all for listening to the Working Tools Podcast. Goodbye.